Hello and welcome to the Reapers. So it's time, with the Hornets have now been released to the public, so we've got to start doing some guides as has been requested by us. So first of all, what we want to do is our usual cockpit tour. This is where we start at the rear left, work our way round to the main dash and then down to the rear right, and we're just going to cover basically what all of the controls do. It takes a while, but it's very interesting and we always learn something new. So stand by. Right, Sherman, I'm looking back and left. First thing I see that's interactive is switches at the back. We've got hydraulics override and normal, and MC off.
Mission computer switch. Basically, you ideally never touch this, but if the mission computers on one of the two are malfunctioning, you have the ability to shut it off in an emergency.
Is the mission computer like the computer in the Vegan then that has like waypoints and stuff on? Must be.
Well, basically, it's the difference between an old Game Boy and a modern smartphone.
Ah, interesting. Okay, fair enough. I've then hide, which is hydraulics, to the right of that. Override and normal. Don't know, why would you have override? Maybe there's a problem or something. So
it's the hydraulic isolation, so just in case something's also wrong with your hydraulics, you can override the isolations.
Right, okay. So, right. Next is good old oxygen, which we found out is modelled the hard way, is modelled in DCS. So we've got oxygen flow on or off there, easy. And we've got OBOGS on or off. Is that
onboard oxygen generation system? In other words, you have to turn the thing on first.
Right, on. Right, okay, you need that
to
live.
You have missed something, by the way. Look at the switch attached to the black wall of the cockpit.
Yeah, I see that, but I can't really see it, if you know what I mean. What is it?
Yes, this is the nuclear weapon switch, which is basically an additional safety for nuclear deployment of weapons in the Hornet.
Didn't I
we
say
don't have any nukes. We didn't have any nukes, unfortunately, in DCS for the Hornet, but it's there, so...
I told you this would be interesting, Sherman. Right, so I never even knew this was in any way designed to take anything nuclear. So, it seems too late in aircraft to be a nuclear bomber of any kind.
Tactical nuclear bombs are always an option if you're America.
Lols. Right, okay, well there's your nuclear button. So if you want to go nuclear, pew, bang. Right, how interesting. Okay, now we're moving on. We've got something with a red cover right up against the wall. It's non-interactive, so we're not going to worry about it. Right, next is Ant Cell, next to the red cover one. Absolutely no idea.
Antenna selectors.
Antenna selectors. Okay, yep. So we've got COM 1, upper, auto and lower, so you can actually change your antennas as we learnt in the, move them as we learnt in the A10 recently. And then you've got the IFF, you can change between upper or both or lower. Okay, that's
yes, by default they will be in auto and both respectively.
God, I hope that's not modelled in any way. Right.
Well, as long as you don't touch it, I know it's difficult for you not to touch stuff, but as long as you don't touch it, you'll be fine.
I do. Right, next we're going kind of towards the seat. I've got really and GX-exempt. So LRLY.
Right, so these are radio communications or part of the radio communications panel. Relay is the RLY, which is either in plain, off, or cipher. So cipher is basically just a form of encoding. As far as I'm aware. Obviously, we don't know exactly how it works because code is classified. And GX, it is not specifically specified here. Oh well.
Oh, okay, yeah, it doesn't sound imperative. ILS, now, we've gotten obviously a relatively early build of this. Do we have ILS yet? I'm not convinced we do.
In this version of the Hornet, including the one that's currently in early access, the ILS is not modeled. However, I do know some tiny bit about the fact that this is not standard airfield ILS. This is essentially naval-specific ILS used in interacting with the carrier. The controls are, well, basically you've got two controls, a knob for manual channel selecting, and a switch for either UFC, which lets you control the ILS via the UFC panel, or manual, which lets you use the knob.
Understood. Right, okay, cool. Right, looks like more radio stuff next. Towards the seat, you got crypto, hold normal and 0, mode 4 and master. Is this radio stuff? No, it's IFF, sorry, it's IFF.
Yeah, so So I'm not 100% clued up on the active use of IFF for obvious reasons, but Mode 4 is a military mode of IFF as far as I'm aware, so having it on is usually useful, and preferably don't use the emergency mode unless you have to. In our case, we probably won't have to.
Right, so have it on and have it to normal. Right, don't touch that cap, otherwise I'm going to get shot down by my own buddies. Right, okay. Next, we've got volume. Now this is actually quite interesting. Volume, not with these for the different systems. Look, TACAN, power, weapons.
That's RWR, not power.
Sorry, RWR. No, they're all at max by standard by the looks of it.
Yes, it is. I found it can be useful to turn down the RWR slightly, as it is quite loud.
I've got a problem in my F-18 at the moment. I don't get any warning sounds, like...
That's because you turn off your cockpit sounds entirely.
Yeah, but I'm not convinced that's the reason, but this is not the time to talk about it.
I'm telling you that's the reason.
Okay, well, we'll go through this another time. Right, next, we're onto the wall, and we've got what must be circuit breakers. Would you agree if you can get in there and have a look at it? Must be circuit breakers.
Yes, circuit breakers for flight control systems, channel 1, 2, speed brake, and the launch bar specifically.
Interesting. Right. Okay. Next is engine crank. Yay! Engine crank. So you got left and you got right and you've got off. So, well, you just crank the left and you crank the right, which we'll go through in our cold start video. Okay? Don't think we need to go on that. APU, obviously, if I turn that on and I got the battery on, then the auxiliary power unit will start and it will have a green light there for ready. I need to go through that. Next is rudder trim. And I always found this a really weird place to have a rudder. Why has it got a rudder trim knob right here?
Well, basically, typically in a jet aircraft, having rudder trim on with the rest of them, which is actually on the stick, is not particularly imperative. You can make minor adjustments to your rudder trim as necessary. You'll also note that there's a little button in the center of the rudder trim knob, which is actually the takeoff push button. So that's takeoff trim in the Hornet. Although, from what I've learned, you will have to sometimes make minor adjustments to account for your weight.
And what does takeoff trim mean to the layman? What does it...
It basically means that the elevons, which are the surfaces on the back of the plane, which are used for pulling up and down, are preemptively set up in a configuration that will cause the plane to take off if you run it down the runway.
Roger, understood. Cool, must forget that. Next is a red flip-up thing. Gain. You got override and normal. I have no idea what that might be.
So it's basically used for controlling or overriding some of the control of the flight control surfaces. Yes, flight control system is fly-by-wire.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is the FCS panel flight control system. Understood.
Yeah, it doesn't specifically cover it here in this version of the manual, but it is used to override the standard function of the system.
Yeah, I thought that. I thought if you're having fly-by-wire problems, then you could override it to a more manual type mode. Maybe it's something to do with that. But
probably.
We'll find out soon. Okay, then there's reset, and I don't know what that could be resetting exactly.
So, the main example that you see it used in the DCS F-18 is wing droop caused on idle planes that have been sitting idle for too long. It basically just resets all of the flight controls and makes sure they're still functional.
How interesting. Okay, that's flight control. Next is fuel. It's kind of really horribly under the lever, so it's hard to see. But we've got probe. Oh, I know this one. Probe, because I've done this. This is the air-to-air refueling probe. If you turn it on, it sticks out, so you can go in air-to-air refuel. I'm going to have to do another video of that as well, as I just realised. Interestingly, you've got come on, brain. You've got
three-way.
So you've got probe extend at the top, retract in the middle, and then emerge extend on the bottom. I wonder what emerge extend is. We'll have to have a play with it.
For whatever reason you need to keep it extended for more than just refueling purposes, you just press the emergency extend and it'll stay open, I imagine.
Understood. Right, okay, if I get my tracker hard to work with me. Right, we've got external tanks, obviously, external fuel tanks. And I don't know why we've got two switches. What are these?
So the one is for wing-mounted external tanks, the other is for the centerline tank.
Oh, yeah.
These are used to control fuel flow. So for example, if you set it to stop, you will prevent your tank from being drained. Override, I assume, overrides any standard fuel control flow system.
Understood. Right. Yep. Okay. Fine. Fuel dump. I use this all the time. So if you have to do an emergency landing or something, and you've got too much fuel to trap onto a carrier, then you go bong, keep it on, and all your fuel will be dumped down to about 3,000 or something like that is. I remember.
Yes. Now don't complain that you're leaking something again.
Yes. Right. Oh, and I haven't seen this on the wall above the thrust lever is which must mean the chaff, and is that the flare dispenser?
It is the countermeasure dispense button, yes.
So you just bang it. You just bang it with
Pretty
your
much.
fist, wouldn't you? Bang, 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 bang. Interesting. I've never seen that on another plane, but okay. Right, you've got the thrust lever here. Now, you don't click on these buttons here. You actually click them on your HOTAS stick, and that's how they're toggled. And obviously, you push forward, and this stick would go forward. Right, I'm going to try and look around the thrust lever now. Interestingly, on the right, there is a little switch. Is that seat forwards and backwards? It doesn't give me a word. Seat height adjustment. Oh, I'm going to try that when I put my battery on to see if it works. Okay. And there's actually a knob on the right of the stick as well of the thrust lever. Do you see that knob? It's a turny knob.
I do see it, yes.
Friction. Oh, it's friction. It's friction. It's friction. It's friction. Got it. Right. So this thing here determines how much friction this stick has. So that's
Right. Also, you literally just push the throttles out of the idle detent and push them forward to look at what's behind them on the left.
how do I take it? Alt something, isn't it? What is it?
Left, right alt and home, and right shift and home.
Wait, alt home. Right shift home. Right.
And push the throttle forwards.
Whee! Look at it. It's got little brushes. Look, wee, brushy, brushy. Okay, cool. Right. Intr wing inhibit normal.
Pretty sure that stands for internal wing tanks, as in the wing, the fuel tanks that are actually inside the wing and their fuel flow. Inhibit obviously being limit the amount of fuel being drained from those tanks.
Interesting. Okay, fine. Next, we appear to have some lights. We've got strobe, which we can have bright, off, or dim. Position.
Yes, these lights are the red ones that are located on the tail plane.
Roger that. We've got next position lights, off, position, strobe, bright, or bright. What are the position lights? They're the format. No, they are the normal ones you'd get in a Cessna or something, aren't they? Position lights.
They're typically the ones that you'll see on the edges of the wings.
Right. Yep. Understood. And then your formation lights with which are like the little strips, aren't they? So you can formation together, and and off formation bright. Okay, so, well, off or bright. Yeah, now to the left, there's a flippy uppy red, which is Gen tie control.
The Gen tie switch.
What's that?
So Gen tie stands for generator tie.
Okay, can't work out what the Gen tie control is. If someone knows, then let us know, please. Right, going to put that down. Right, let's carry on showing. We're doing very well. We've nearly done the whole left panel, which I'm happy about. Right, we've got now. I'm not sure what this next panel is, but ground power. Something to do with ground power. I haven't got a clue, to be honest. 1, 2, 3, 4, and external power. Absolutely no idea what any of this is.
So these are all ground power switches that allow primarily for the use of the ground crew to transfer ground power to various systems for test purposes.
Right, that's stuff we're not going to use at the moment. Yeah, stuff we're not going to use in DCS, I don't think. So it's fine. At least it's there. Next is fire. We've got normal test A and test B.
This consists of 2 fire test circuits which will run when you press and hold them. It will primarily be a couple of lights coming on, as well as Betty running through the fire warnings.
Roger, good old Betty. Right, fine. Right, we're jumping on to the dash. First, we've got... I can do this one. Hook bypass. Now, this is an interesting one. So, this is regarding the hook that drops down at the bottom, and I believe it optimizes the hook for either an airfield or a carrier. So if you're going to land on a carrier, you have to set that to carrier. I've never really fully understood why this is, but...
the primary reason, if what you're saying is true and it optimizes the hook, is the simple fact that hook angle when landing on the deck is very important, else it'll just end up boltering non-stop. I believe I just drained my battery.
Lols. Roger, yeah, like I did the other day. Yeah, so now Gemma's drained his battery, so he's now got to use his ground power, so that's an interesting one. Right, anyway, I've got to carry on. Landing taxi light, so this is the whopping great light at the front, isn't it? There is the big beam light, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
It serves both purposes, although its use on a carrier deck at night is actually fairly limited.
Roger that, so that's that. Right, launch. So this is what we call the launch bar or the Kato bar. So it is, let's go and have a look. It is that little bar at the front of the landing gear, and it rotates downwards to hook onto the steam catapult lug. And so, yeah, we'll do a video on this of how to hook up, but yep, you'll have to have that extended for it to hook up to the bar. Next, flaps. So very simply, you can have them full down there, where they're absolutely all the way down, only for landing, I believe. Half, I don't know what half would be for, probably an airfield takeoff.
Half is typically used during takeoffs, as far as I have been told.
Roger, and then auto, and then it decides the flaps itself based on your speed and other variables. So as soon as you're up and flying, basically you switch it to auto. Right, anti-skid, so it's like your ABS on the car, you want it on. I don't know why they give you the option of turning off, but I guess there's a good reason. Brake pressure, let's see if I can get that pumping. No, I can't because I've got no battery on at the moment, I guess, but that is your brake pressure, presumably in PSI. Yeah, PSI times 1,000, well, that's high pressure. Yep, that's that. Emergency parking brake. Right, I've never understood how this works. Emergency park, what does it do, Sherman? Does it your handbrake like in a car?
You literally grab it, you twist it, and it locks what's essentially a parking brake.
Right, so I've got to remember to do that on the carrier so I don't fall off the edge or something. Right, understood.
Or more importantly, remember to turn it off so that you don't look like a dingus trying to taxi with your parking brake on.
Lols. Okay, fine. Next, Selective Jettison. Very useful tool. So if you've got a fuel tank that's empty and you're going into combat, so you can get rid of that fuel tank, you want to jettison it. We're going to do a video on this because it's actually more complicated than you think, but here's a different modes you can select, jettison and the actual jettison button. But yeah, we'll go through that. Right, next, gear lever up or down. It won't let me... Oh, yes it will. Yep, so gear lever up or down. Very simple, gear. Next, canopy jettison. I'm not going to do that because I know Sherman's APU is loud as hell, so I shall not put you through that. But if you want to jettison your canopy because there's a fire or whatever, that's how you do it. Next is push to jettison, emergency jettison. So you push this, dong, and everything that will drop that is not considered essential, like, so your bombs will drop, your wing pylons will drop apart from the sidewinders.
Basically, all except for the wingtip pylons will be released.
Roger, I think I've tried it, and it actually keeps the belly mounts on as well for the missiles, so it keeps 2 AIM-7s. And
it does not affect the fuselage missiles, that's correct.
Roger, yep, so that's that. So I guess that's there in case, someone springs you in a dogfight and you've got to get rid of all your weight quickly.
Well, it's more like if you have an engine failure and the only way to keep your aircraft flying is to quickly jettison all your stores.
Roger that, and also known as the Admiral button because you have to pay a visit to the Admiral if you dump all of his expenses. The
Admiral's doorbell is the term I believe was used.
Admiral's doorbell.
If you press that button, you're seeing the Admiral.
That's exactly right. Right, Master Arm, so if you want to fire your weapons or even use some of the weapons to set them up, you have to go to Master Arm on or safe. Okay, it's easy. If you want to go to air-ground mode, press air-to-ground mode. If you want to go to air mode, press air-to-air mode. Don't forget that, because otherwise you'll be like me and wondering why your bombs haven't dropped for half an hour. Next, fire extinguish. I guess that's what it is. If there's a fire, you press that and it extinguishes it. So I've never had a reason to play with that yet, but... right, next we've got the DDIs. So you've got left DDI here and right DDI here. So they are multi-function displays and they are designed essentially to save a lot of cockpit clutter, aren't they? Because each DDI can have multiple functions. It can look at your stores, it can become an RWR display, it can be a cockpit backup display, it can be, loads of stuff, and we will do a proper video on this to go through and show the different displays, but
the one thing to note about the DDIs is that they are monochrome, which means you only see in black and green.
Roger, only black and green, yep, so that's fine. Nice, 80s tech. Right, your brightness knob there, contrast knob there, you've got night mode, you've got off, night and day. Off, night and day, so that's that. Lovely. Above, now I've not really paid much attention to this because I'm capped, but above the left DDI we've got warning, what appears to be warning and caution lights and a master caution cancel. So yep, that's about it. Don't really know what each one does, but we'll find out as our aeroplanes start getting shot and things.
Right, so the firelight has actually got a cover on it. You right click the cover to depress it and then you left click it in order to enable the firelight.
Right, interesting. Okay, well I'm sure I'll have that to deal with at some point. Okay, good. Right, next we're going to jump up. We've got the HUD. We're going to do a proper video on this, but this is... oh God, what's the word, Sherman? Not superimposed. Holographic type affair, where it shows various amounts of data, including targets, acquisition and stuff like that here, and you can look through it, but we'll do a proper video on that. Anything to add on that?
If you know, just below the HUD, you've got a couple of lights, one green and one white, excuse me, and a bit button. That is essentially a bit test for the HUD camera.
Interesting. Okay, I'm sure we'll be doing that at some point. Right, next, Sherman's beloved UFC. Do you want to give us a quick overview of it? What things it controls?
Upfront controller, it's effectively a keyboard input system that allows you to input numerical values where and when needed, as well as a few other functions such as on, off, or enabling and disabling.
Yep, so
if you've got a number of functions, for example, you'll see there's an ADF switch with the numbers 1 or 2 settings. This literally just turns your selected radio into an ADF on its currently selected frequency. Below that you have the volume control knobs for both radios on either side, COM 1 and 2. Below that is a digital display for the number of a channel you have selected, as well as some other modes like manual. You have your standard digital keyboard with the input panel just above it, and to the right you have the option selections that you can use with them on the selected mode. Just below that you've got a couple of silver knobs which are used for cycling through the radio channels, and a row of buttons: autopilot, IFF, TACCAN, ILS, data link, beacon, and the on and off switch. On the right you also have the brightness for the digital displays. Below that you have MCON, which is used for emissions control. And that's the UFC. Now just below that are some more HUD controls. Going from left to right you have the HUD display mode, and you'll notice that there's 2 modes called Reject 1 and 2. What that allows you to do is hide certain information, effectively acting as a kind of declutter. To the right of that you have the brightness knob. You need to at least turn this on to be able to see the HUD. Below that you have the AOA indexer knob. This is a brightness control for the AOA indexer, which is those little lights sitting just left of the HUD glass. Above and to the right of that, the day-night switch, which controls a day-night setting for the brightness. Below and right of that, the altimeter control, which will decide which which altimeter is displayed on the HUD by default, barometric or radar. Now the black level lever, I need to look this one up. At this time it is not listed in this manual.
Right, we'll ignore that.
Attitude indicator, it will either refer to one of 2 attitude indicators that's built into the F-18. You have your INS aligned attitude indicator, you have your standby attitude indicator, which is the steam gauge just below to the right slightly, or auto, which will cycle it as needed. Video control switch, top right of that. It literally selects which video will be recorded when. And last but not least, HUD balance. Nothing on balance control here at this time.
Okay, fine. Before we go down, we've got another DDI on the right here, essentially the same as the one on the left, as far as I'm aware. Shouldn't need to go over that.
Yes.
Right, and let's have a quick look up on the A pillar as well. We've got at the very top right, that's the fire control, isn't it? As in fire the weapons control.
This is the This is essentially the radar guidance control indicator. So the top light will read lock when you've locked something up with the radar, and the shoot light will appear when you are within shooting parameters.
Lovely, excellent. Okay, so got that. Right, before we go down to the uber complicated nav, let's just look around the right DDI. So we've got another fire control panel, it looks like, that you have to lift up.
Mm-hmm. Additional indicators and warning lights, and the interesting stuff's actually to the right of it.
Right, right at the DDI, you mean?
Yes.
Right, we've got IR cool, override norm off, not really sure what that is, something to do with the mist.
It is a cooling control for the AIM-9 Sidewinders. Technically speaking, they do not require cooling to function. However, the addition of cooling makes the seeker head more receptive to infrared signals from jet exhausts.
Didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah. So below that is the helmet-mounted display brightness control. You use this to essentially turn on the helmet-mounted display, which is not yet available in the early access, but will be at a later date. And below that, the spin recovery switch. You never really want to press this unless you're actually in a spin. It's an extreme emergency mode. If you put your F-18 into an unrecoverable spin, you flip this, and the flight regime will put the controls into a dedicated mode, which is its job is purely to get you out of that spin. You just grab onto the hold bars on the A-frame and hang on for dear life at this point.
Let me have a look if we've got any anti-spin dorsals standby. No, we don't have anti-spin dorsals in this plane, so yeah, they rely on the computer.
Yeah, it purely takes control of the fly-by-wire, and you just have to hang on for the ride because you're more of a detriment to the plane than anything at that point.
What an interesting thing. I'm sure I'll be trying that out. Right, bolted to the right of the A pillar is also a strip compass, old school one, so that's good. Below the DDI, now we're in my realm. Okay, here we go. So we've got the attitude, artificial horizon, there we go, which shows your attitude, your roll, your pitch, etc. And that's got your gauge.
It's the standby gauge.
Watch up. And cage button and adjuster, no, tester. Yep, and you can adjust and cage there. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, it's the standby, I guess, but yeah, okay, that's fine. Right, we've got, I haven't actually looked at any of these, but this must be the speedo at the bottom left, up to 800 knots. Yep, 800 knots, that's fine. We've got must be a barometric altimeter there. And you can change your QFE there.
And so as that, you've got a rate of climb indicator.
And a rate of climb indicator. And is that a backup RWR here?
Technically, it's the primary RWR. This is a purely RWR sensor. I believe this model is the ALR67, according to what I know from outside of DCS.
Interesting. So that's the RWR, and you can also display an RWR on the DDIs as well.
Yes, we will do a more in-depth video once we know the RWR functionality is fully integrated into the early access.
AFA. Right, now let's go down to this thing I've been avoiding. It's the kind of navigation. I understand it as the navigation module. What's it really called?
I assume you're referring to the AMPCD, right? Which is, it looks like a DDI, but it isn't. In fact, you've seen two of these things in the Harrier already. This is basically a full color display, which makes it substantially more useful in theory than the other two, because it allows you to have things like a moving map or a color display available on there as needed.
Roger. So what kind of... So it is navigation then, isn't it? So it's waypoints,
well, the reason primarily associated with navigation is because A, it's a little difficult to use it as a radar scope when you have to look down between your legs while flying. And B, it's the only color display, so having the moving map on there is probably best.
Roger. So is this the kind of 1990s equivalent of a HSI then?
I don't think that would be fair to call it that. It's closer to what you would call the TAD in the A-10C, to be honest.
Roger. Okay.
Because the digital HSI goes all the way back to the early 70s in the F-14.
Okay. I noticed we've got a heading and a CLS.
Yeah, because these two are primarily associated with the with this display. You have these two controls which allow you to manually cycle the course and the desired heading that you want. Desired heading is typically used in conjunction with the autopilot system, which allows you to activate a desired heading mode, which will get the plane to turn onto said heading. Course is used to give an indicated course from a designated point on the map system. So, for example, if you designate a TechCan station from, say, your carrier, and you then put a course line of the ship's direction of movement, you can use that to help align yourself for landing.
Roger. Okay, well, we'll obviously do a video on the features of this module once we've got it nailed, so, yep, we'll come back to that. Right, behind the stick, out the way you go. Now, I can never really see this, but this is the Rwr Control Panel, question mark? Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yes, this is the older part of it. The system itself is slightly upgraded from the earlier Hornets, which was slightly more manual, but this is the more modern system. And in this case, it's the ALR67 control panel buttons, which you should be somewhat similar with from the F5 configuration. As you can see, it's got an audio, a dimmer, and it's got a bunch of buttons with advanced functions, such as the ability to do target separation.
Okay. Do you have to, is this something you have to turn on, or will it turn itself on?
You have to turn it on, otherwise it won't. Otherwise, you literally won't pick up radar returns.
Okay, fine. On the left of that, we've got ECM jettison. What the deuce is that? I didn't know we could jettison ECM.
So the the FA-18C has an internal ECM system. I need to double check this, but I'm assuming that the jettison basically means you can literally fling it off the plane.
How interesting. That'd be something interesting to find out. Cap likes his weight saving, so... Just realised we've missed a whole bunch of stuff under the first DDI, so we will come back to that.
Pressing this button releases all chaff and flare on board, so rather than, well, I was half right, rather than actually jettisoning the ECM system, it just drops all of your countermeasures.
Okay, no idea why you'd want to do that, but...
Emergencies.
Okay, right, dispenser. Now, this is an important one. You will need to click every flight, essentially, as I found out, to my detriment. So if you want to be able to flare and chaff, you have to click to bypass. Is that right? That is right, wasn't it?
No.
Oh.
The default position is off, which is the bottom position.
Mm-hmm.
If you set it to on, then the dispenser will be functional with the rest of the system. Mm-hmm. Bypass is used as an emergency measure.
So, okay, so if you've got it on, then you can go bang, 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 and do dispensing.
Yes.
Okay, we'll need to play around a bit more, but it's essentially...
So, to qualify on bypass, the selection bypasses the countermeasure program and will release a single chaff or single flare based on the hotess countermeasure release command.
Excellent, that's what I thought. Right, so off is off, on will follow a program, I think, and bypass will give you manual control, and that's what I want. Cap always wants manual control of everything. So I'm always going to go bypass. I'm not interested in programs. Right, okay, ECM. Off, standby, bit, receive, and exmit. ECMs are so complicated, but I think you have to set it to receive, question mark.
So, receive, essentially, this is actually a power system for a system known as the ASPJ, which is currently not implemented, but will be in time. So, here are what the modes do. Standby. Once the ALQ65 is turned on to standby, it enters a 4-minute warm-up period. After 4 minutes, the standby lights will appear on the left set of warning panels. It'll just literally STBY in one of the green lights on the left. Bit commands the ALQ65 to perform a bit. The ASPJ will cycle power and then provide a go, which is displayed as a green, or a no-go as a yellow light indication, also in the same set of panels, of panel lights, sorry. Recce, or REC, system only detects and displays threat radars. No electronic attack is initiated. The green REC light will illuminate when radio frequency energy has been detected. The REC light will also light up during an ASPJ bit. Exmit. System detects and displays threats and then uses the active electronic attack, aka this is when it fires off its ECM.
So
the green exmit light will be illuminated. The jam cube will also be visible on the radar. Alright, that's everything with that.
Okay, fine, very good. AUX rel, no AUX release switch. Nothing to do with that, is it? Enable null.
At this time, it is not mentioned here.
Good. Cabin pressure obviously there. If you want to...
And to the left of the auxiliary release, you may have noticed a rudder adjustment pedal.
Yep, so you can push them in or out. I guess it moves the rudder box. Okay, very good. You've got your stick here with your buttons on it, and... Oh, well, you Yep. And so you would move them with your actual joystick, basically. They'd press those buttons. That's fine.
Yes. Fun fact: you can click at the base of the stick to remove it.
Wish they all had that.
Most of them do.
Under the left DDI, we've got stuff. So on the left side, it's Select Station Jettison. So in collaboration with this Select Jettison, here is the different stations that you can jettison. Center, left inboard, right outboard, and so on.
Yes.
And lights below. I've never actually seen what those lights below do.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Integrated Fuel and Engine Indicator, also known as the IFE. This thing tells you your fuel, your current time as you set it up, your engine statistics, including things like your engine temperature and thrust information, as well as how wide your nozzles are currently open. Very useful for things like A, making sure you don't run out of fuel, B, double checking that you're not accidentally an afterburner.
Yep, it's very good. It's the best one I've seen on an aeroplane so far. It's also got some interactive controls, quantity, arrow, zone. We've never played with it before, but it just so looks like a fully interactive unit that you can get lots of information from.
Yes, you can go through a lot of information, including setting up time, data, etc. So below that you've got a brightness switch for the IFE that works basically as intended. And below that you have video recording controls, manual, auto, off. You can choose what sensor you want to be recording, etc, etc.
Yep, roger. Helmet motor display. Interesting. Right, so that's that. So we're shifting onto the right panel now. It's a big old panel, but let's get him done. So my favourite hook, up or down. If your hook is up, your hook is down. My second favourite, wing control. So we drag that out, left, and that would fold the wings up completely if I had my power on it and my engines on, etc. And
yes.
Then I want to fly, put them back down. Yep, so now on the left we've got a gauge, and I'm trying to get my track IR to cooperate. It is... What is
It's
that?
a radar altimeter,
Oh, it's
which
your
also
radar.
comes... It also comes with a little scroll wheel which allows you to set up a warning which will go off, an audible alarm telling you you're below the set altitude.
Very good, very good. So if you're in bad weather or whatever, then you can set that to 400 feet there. I think that's 400.
Or if you're a Grim Reaper trying to land on a carrier.
Yes, and then if you go below that, then it will give you a squealing. Very good, like that. Right, below that is hydraulic pressure, which I'm trying to look at. 1000 psi, yes. So you'll need that if you want your flaps and stuff.
Right, and just to the right of that you have a small caution panel, which is typically for stuff that isn't recorded by the digital system, so typically your electrics and your generators.
Roger. And you've got AV control cool on the right. No idea what that is.
Alright, I found it. AV cool, which is apparently designated the oxygen system panel.
Boring. Right, okay, fine. Next we have the ejection seat safe, so that would be armed, I believe, and I keep forgetting to do that, so internet, you have to remind me to do that. You've also got a manual override handle. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure I should click on it though. It's covered in warnings. Oh, you've got the eject there, so I can pull that and I'll eject. I can manual override handle there, which I'm not going to pull. Ejection seat over manual handle, pull push, and the arm. So yeah. Right, now back on the right panel, battery. What is that in volts, I'm guessing? So there's electrical panel. So you've got just two batteries, a U and an E. Okay. Then you've got a left generator. Switch.
Left and right generators, basically. You just flip them on to get the generators to work when the engines are running.
Roger. And you got your battery, which you can turn off or on or override.
There is also an emergency override mode.
Roger. We've got temperature controls, if I can get my track IO working. Mode auto, manual off RAM. I mean, we don't really care because we're not real humans in here, so, but here you can do your temperature, suit temperature apparently.
Very useful for a pilot to be able to control the suit temperature because you don't want to be sweating like a pig.
Roger that. Cabin pressure, normal, pump or ram dump. No, sorry, dump, not pump. Okay, fine. Fascinating. Lead air. Normal.
This one is important because sometimes when you cycle your FCS system or perform the bit, you'll close the bleed air valves and you'll need to cycle them to reopen them.
Roger, cool. Got that. Anti-ice. Pitot anti-ice on, which you'll need if it's going to be cold, or I think you should just have it all the time. But
well, Pitot has 2 modes, on and auto. Auto will designate it as needed.
Okay, so on is an override. Okay, and engine as well, so you can have it off or on or test for the engine anti-ice. Okay, cool. Next, my favourite, lights. So turns your console lights on, turns your...
Specifically your interior.
Roger. Your instrument panels on, turns your floods on. Have them all to max all the time. That's what Cap thinks. Right, I need to get back down there. There it is. Right, I haven't managed to look at these ones yet. We've got light test. So, go figure. Warning, caution, bright. Charts, bright. What's mode navigation?
NVG, so it's actually a 3-way switch. Day, night, NVG. So NVG is meant to make things more visible in night vision.
Okay, I haven't tried that yet, but okay. Right, if I can get to look down here, we've got the demist, the defog, low defog or high defog.
Yes, you'll notice that if you actually push this forward and backwards, the sound of the defogger will become louder or quieter in the cockpit.
Roger. Right, I'm desperately trying to get my tracker out to look right now. It's getting harder and harder. Windshield anti-ice. Rain, off or anti-ice. So there you go, windshield. FLIR, that is forward-looking infrared, isn't it?
Yes, obviously at the moment we don't have FLIR-capable systems, but they will be available later.
Sure.
So you can either set them to standby or on, because you don't want to overheat them either.
Roger, so we can have a look at that. So this is sensors. This is the sensor panel is what this is. So we'll have a look at that when that comes available. Next, LTDR. Any idea what that is?
I believe that stands for laser target designation and ranging. So yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
And to the right of that you have laser spot track and NFLIR. I'm not entirely sure what NFLIR stands for though.
Night forward looking. Okay, so we'll find out when we get the functionality for this. Sensors, radar, Cap knows that. So the whopping rate radar on the nose, off or standby or operational or pull emergency. So you want that. Sorry, how do you pull it? Can't pull it. But operational obviously is what you want to go and shoot down aeroplanes. INS off.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a INS system. Which is, technically speaking, it's integrated with the GPS, kind of like in the A10. Yeah, this seems to specifically target the INS panel. So there's 2 modes of alignment because this is a Navy plane. You have CV, which is an alignment mode on the carrier, and you have ground, which was designed for aligning when stationary at the ground. Beyond that, you also have the nav mode, which will be a standard mode, IFA and IFA gyro test and GB. I'm not entirely certain of their functions.
Okay. Right.
I'm pretty sure, well, my theory is IFA stands for in-flight alignment.
Roger. Next we've got the mode panel, and I have absolutely no idea what this is all about. Any idea mode panels?
So this thing's called the KY-58 standby. At this time there is no further information on this specific panel.
Right, so we don't know what the KY-58 is, but it's probably going to be useful, so we'll get back to you when we know what that is. We've got next panel down. I don't think that's anything at the moment. I don't know what it is.
There is one thing you did miss just to the right of that panel. You'll notice there's a little switch popping up. That's the FCS bit.
Roger, I've seen it.
Along with some more circuit breakers for various things, including the landing gear hook and the remaining FCS channels.
Roger. What does FCS bit do?
Performs a built-in test on the flight control surfaces, just basically make sure they are still functional.
Roger. And then just looking around to the very far right, at the, kind of up the top, I've got something I can press with a go and no go. Guessing that's the same kind of thing.
Remember the camera I told you about the HUD? There are a couple of these on either side of the plane that are looking directly at the DDIs.
Oh right, yeah. I see.
So that allows you to record information for the DDIs as well.
Okay, weird way of doing it, but okay, fine. Right.
But they're quite old sensors, so I'm assuming they probably couldn't get a data recorder for them.
AT stuff, I suppose. Right, that's pretty cool. So we've covered kind of 95%. The other 5% we'll be getting later on. Anything to add, Sherman, before we go to start her up?
Not really, other than I appreciate the level of detail, including like the stuff on the wear and tear that actually kind of looks like my HOTAS right now.
Roger. Okay, I'm going to start pulling levers then, because I am cap at the end of the day, so let's pull this thing. And... oh my word! There she goes. Woohoo! Did you see him go? Did you see him go, Sherman?
Yes, I also saw him come back down straight through your
manual
fuselage.
override. Let's try this. Oh my word!
Whoops. Well, that's how you override the ejection system.
That's. I'm off to see the Admiral. He's going to be angry with me. Right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.